Two Kings, brought to you by RMK Productions and Network and 10 United Podcast Network. I'm the Queen, your host, Marjorie Phoenix, and along with one of the other kings, Kevin McLemore, we want to welcome you to today's episode. Ray Porch, unfortunately, the other king could not be with us today. We miss him and we hope to have him back soon. Today, we are excited to introduce, as part of our music series, V.X.Symitar. He is an artist out of Atlanta that is all about intelligent hip hop for those with their minds open. Now, a few episodes ago, Ray, Kevin, and I did a show on Black consciousness music, and it was really inspired from the listening party of V.X.Symitar and his group, Chairman of the Bars, who just recently released some music. And for me, I was inspired by it because it took me back to the time of my young 20-ish days, back in the 80s. It had that Tribe Called Quest vibe to it. And the music had a message. And it was really about raising Black consciousness. So we wanted to bring him on so he could talk about the music he's making, along with the collaborations that he has, and what he's doing with the music. So before we really get into that, we want to get to know who you are, V.X.Symitar, because there's so many layers to you. You're an artist, you're a creative. I think you're a teacher as well. You're a collaborator. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. Yeah, well, I'm not used to getting such a grand welcoming like I'm somebody special, but I appreciate it.
We could take it back.
What'd you say?
I said we could take it back.
No, I'll take it back. I'm with it. But yeah, I'll say I'm a musician, yes. And I'm originally from the Boston, Massachusetts area. We moved to I came to Atlanta some years ago. I'm in multiple groups. So let me start with it like this. So as V.X.Symitar, I started a long time ago. My group started in 1988. It's funny you mentioned that. You said you went back to the 80s with Tribe Called Quest and all that. I love Tribe Called Quest, by the way, but I've never been compared to them, but maybe it's the vibration you're talking about. Anyway, I was part of this group called the Solar Panel. The Solar Panel was a bunch of different groups together. Actually, I don't think I know how many groups are in Solar Panel. I'm one of the founders. It's a group that has dual roots. So some of it's in Los Angeles, where it started off as being a bunch of groups out there mixed in with the East Coast. So what we were trying to do with the Solar Panel started off originally as being called the Microphone Mafia. The Microphone Mafia was it was our original group, and then we changed the name because there were too many connotations mixed in with mafia, and we have enough stigmas as is, so we wanted to do something different. So Solar Panel, Sons of Light allows reflection. That's what SOLAR means, and it's the panel. So a bunch of us, I'm in a group called Subliminal Assault. Subliminal Assault is me and another brother named Didon Skills. He's the producer, he makes beats. There's also another guy named Squally Darks, and he makes beats as well. Then there's I'm in another group, as the one that you met was the Chairman of the Bars, and we call COB for short. And so that is 4 of us, 2 from New York, that's Coach Cheese and Chuck Marone, 1 brother from Atlanta. We call him Ripcord. He doesn't call himself that. His name is Cordrick. And myself, V.X.Symitar from Boston. And so we all met each other in Atlanta. And so that's how that went. Atlanta has a very important part in these musical groups because that's where a lot of these people met. Atlanta is a very diverse place. It has people from all over the country. and every other person you meet in Atlanta is from somewhere else, which makes it a very interesting place. But besides the beautiful Queens down here, which is why most of the brothers stay. But let's see. So, is there any music group? Oh, I'm also in another group called Cold Sonics, and that's with this brother named Dark Angel. He's out of Dorchester, Massachusetts. We've been rocking for, I don't know, over 20 years, as like in different groups, but we were both together underneath the solar panel. And we finally came together to make a group too called Cold Sonics. You asked me about that earlier. They say, how come you say Cold Sonics? Because it ain't just cold. We cool, see? So cool is in the word, but we cold at the same time. So it's Cold Sonics. Anyway, I know I probably smile a little more to be a so-called rapper because I'm supposed to be hardcore, right? But anyway, so we're trying to bring it back to original style hip hop, which is represent yourself, represent the truth that you have to share with people, looking at your community, looking at our world, and using the talents that the Creator gave us to try to add some clarity, add some solutions, or even just some good observations, And so that's what we do.
So what's your role in the process of the music making? Because everybody plays a role in the groups, right? So are you a writer? Are you a producer? Where would you say that your gift comes in with the different groups?
Excellent question. All of the above. I started as a writer. I started writing poetry as a young person because my grandmother, Hattie, she would call me and say, well, so-and-so passed, down in my church. A lot of time I didn't know these people, but she'd say, so-and-so passed, and could you write a poem about it? So I'd write a poem and then they'd read it at church. Now, I was never there when they did it, but I always heard that it was well received. So then from doing that kind of writing, I went on to being involved in hip hop, in like 84, I was in this group called the B City Crew. We was a breakdancing group. And I was the youngest one, so they used to always send me out first. So I go out to Rock Box and get it in, run the MC. And so from there, I just fell in love with hip hop as a culture. The way that we talk, the way that we expressed ourselves different. We invented words. It was almost a bit of rebel music from the beginning because we were trying to break so-called stereotypes, and most people don't see us as being literate, even though we came up with language in writing, period. But when you got crafty people who can change history, you can forget these things in a few generations. So we got back to that, and I started writing in 88 as far as rhyme style, and that was because of a group called Public Enemy. I was listening to Public Enemy. They put out Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. And I remember I was sitting on my stoop one day, and this dude in my neighborhood, I used to call him 40 because he was always drinking 40s. But he walked by, he was like, what's good? And we started talking. He's like, man, I just listened to Public Enemy's album, man. It changed my life, man. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. A rap record, a hip hop record can change your life. He's like, yeah, Mom, I'm about to stop drinking 40s. I was like, what? Okay. So that's when I started writing. I've been doing it ever since.
So you mentioned Public Enemy. So back in '80s and so forth, Curtis Blow was the first rapper to get a major record deal, and I think LL Cool J made rap cool, or how did he put that? So I was reading a book by Chuck D about the history of rap and so forth, and he talked about the relationship between the Bronx, East Coast, and California, and so forth. How did you guys fall in there? Because you've mentioned some of the groups that he mentioned. I mean, I was around with Run DMC when I was at Central State, when they decided to go out and record music, and Mr. Newsom, the president of our school, said they would never amount to anything.
That's what he said?
Yeah, he said when they dropped out, he says that they're not going to amount to anything.
So never take a tax advice from him. He don't he very well.
But you know, where do you go? Where do you fall in the history of with you know, P Diddy, all those guys, Run DMC, you know, and how, you know, Aerosmith, you know, I think they did walk this way with those guys and changed over and created a whole nother culture. And you know, and then it was what was it, Crump, and then it was the movie business got involved in the rap business and started to, you know, what was the first movie, Beat Street? Is that the
No, no, I wasn't the first.
which
First
one was the first?
Southtown.
All right.
So uh first the first rap, see. Yeah, I came up in that time just like you, listening to the original stuff. And
Right.
there was a question about first, you said LL said what? I'm sorry.
LL Cool J said he made
LL
rap
Cool.
cool.
Yeah, they said LL Cool J made rap cool at 16 years old, and I remember the video when he took off his shirt and he was boxing and they used the silhouette for someone else's logo. I mean, he was just trying to get girls, and he didn't even know that he was that cool.
Well, you know, yes, he did, because his name LL means ladies love Cool James.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
no, he didn't make hip hop cool, if you ask me. No disrespect to LL. I
Yeah.
have enough respect for LL Cool J, but hip hop was cool long before he came. I
Right.
didn't stop anything until 1984, I believe.
85. 85.
Okay, came out. I got a beat in 85, and I need a beat. And I remember reading his autobiography. He's one of the earliest, but there were a lot of groups that came before him, and I
Right.
got into it really. I mean, Run DMC is the ones who made me see the hip hop was for me. Like, they dressed like normal dudes. They had a kind of neighborhood feel to them, and that was the first time I ever felt like I could be a part of it. You know, that's why I started breakdancing. But before that, you know, Melly Mel, the Furious Five, you know, people like that. When I was listening to them, listening to you know, Planet Rock and all that kind of thing, they were like stars to me. You know, I was a fan.
Right.
I was listening. I wasn't trying to do it. You know, but when I
Right.
was Planet Rock, that was it. You know, when I heard DJ Cheese and all them come out later on from Jersey, when they came out with King Cut and those kind of songs back then, that's when I was like, this is something new. But I still didn't want to do it yet. It was Run DMC that made me want to do it, and then made me want to be part of the culture as far as more active. And then it was Public Enemy that made me want to pick up the mic.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of KRS-One. I think he's the king of this thing.
All right.
Yeah, because see, and some of the groups that Kevin was mentioning, like they were the popular ones, like they became more celebrity like, right? But the music that I think that you and your group really is into, that, you know, we appreciate it, but it still didn't get the cred
Right.
like the others, is like the KRS ones. I mean, he's a little bit different. A lot of people knew him, but like Brand Nubian, you know,
Right.
De La Soul,
Right.
you know, groups like that, where we, you know, we heard them, Digital Planets, we rock to them. It's timeless music,
Yes.
and you could play that now with your children in
Yes.
the car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But some of hip hop music, it just went commercial. And actually people would say there's a difference between rap and hip hop. You know, I feel like when I was growing up in the 80s, like what you're talking about, it was rap. Like that's just what it was. That was, you know, that was the inception. And then it sort of changed to hip hop. But you know, I don't know, you know, if you're seeing like this big difference between, you know, rap, hip hop, what it's looking like nowadays.
You know, what KRS said the best. He said, rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live. You know, he defined it for us. So like and Rakim said, rap is rhythm and poetry. Cuts create sound effects, you know, and it all kind of, so you're doing rhythm and poetry, but your rhythm and poetry does not necessarily have to be in the vein of the culture. You can do
Right.
rhythm and poetry about selling a car, right? Right? Or making a pancake. But you know, what I mean, if you're including aspects of your culture, if you're dropping, you know, the way that you express yourself, and different things, that I think that makes it morph more into being a form of hip hop. Now, hip hop is a label, you know, so it's all really rhymes and poetry, and they were doing that long before there was a label. You
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
There was, it came to me when you were just talking about something that you asked me about before about Kevin had said something about the origins of hip hop. So let me write this that fast again.
Yeah.
You had mentioned something I wanted to respond to earlier.
Yeah, the origin of hip hop originally, it's just like our history with music. You know, it was the way that we were able to communicate our experience. You know, the suffering, letting people know that these were issues that were going on that needed to be addressed, and the only difference is we put it in a with a beat and a rhyme, and then our dance supported that, and it actually crossed over, and America started taking notes.
That's what it was, Kev.
Yep.
You brought up Run DMC and Walk This Way,
Right.
right? So just for the audience, Walk This Way was the song that kind of broke them through as far as globally.
Right.
Their marriage of rock and hip hop started with Rockbox, which was
Right.
the first real hit, and that's the one that put them on MTV. No,
Yep.
was it MTV Video Music Box, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're the ones. That's the first hip hop video, and that's the one I think was that the breaker right there. The married rock, which was ours, and we had forgotten it was ours, right? And hip hop, which we know is ours. Well, at that time we knew it was ours, and hopefully for the next few generations we'll know that it's ours too. But in the '80s, it was not cool necessarily to like rock and roll, openly if you were more a so-called black person. So it's like a lot of us liked it, different things, but you always had the stigma with, either you like, black music or you like rock. And it's like you had to figure out, well, we invented that too. What happened?
Yep. Well, matter of fact, when you look at the music in general, R&B, Elvis and everyone else, stole music from, our rhythm, our stage performance, and whatever. It used to be the Platters just stood up there and they sung, but four-part harmony came from us. You know, rhythm and blues, that all came from us. But the one thing when we talk about the message in the music, our message in our music, no matter what era that we were going through, basically educated our people as to what was going on.
Right.
The current music with hip hop or their new version of gangster rap, it's more designed for profit, exploitation, and it doesn't seem to be driven anywhere to whereas it's expressing what we're going through in the signs of a time versus how we can get something shiny and bright with a label on it. And we talked about this, understanding our history and the way that women are portrayed in music and music video, the way that this culture has embraced the N word from changing a vowel to saying it's now acceptable. But I always say that if it's acceptable, you take someone lighter and brighter, put $100 bill on them, take them to South Philly, and write the word N on it, and see how acceptable that is. So, what's your take and your responsibility to educating our young people and the impact that music has on the generation that we have right now, since we're crossing over?
Mm. Uh, Thank you. But you're right. I think that there's hip hop, as it's getting older, I think it was appropriated a long time ago. Somebody figured out this is powerful. We gotta control the mentalities behind this. Um, and I think there's always been people who were willing to do whatever the labels wanted them to do. You know, I do think we had people who had some integrity and believed in what they were saying. They came along, but I also believe that there was an agenda behind them. So
Right.
people like X Clan and like you said, Poor Righteous Teachers, other couple other groups, they weren't pushed like that because they were saying a whole lot, and and just have it's interesting if you look at uh, a system and you get in that system. It's difficult to talk about that system and expect that system to continue to support you. You talk about it in a way, you know what I mean, even if you're telling the truth. But I think that there do need to be people who decide that, okay, listen, I may not want to be a rap star. I don't, but what I'm doing can affect people, can help people. Like Public Enemy's album helped me as a young person listening to that, knowing that, oh, well, I'm not the only person who's reading about different things. There are people who are cool and they talking about it, and it's out there, and we're listening to it in the music and this and that. And so it brought me to a good place, and I think a lot of people my age, it brought us to a good place at that time. And it's powerful. And I think somebody said, okay, we can't have that no more. All these
Right.
kids going to black colleges and talking this and that. And it was like, ah. So, I think now it's right, a little bit more about materialism, a little bit more about drugs. But we don't want to blame the kids because we were doing the same things. We were talking about cocaine, shooting people, even early on, white lines, you know what I mean?
Right.
The thing, like you said, Kevin, we were talking about it, but I think we had a more of a focus on a solution. This is what's happening, but don't let it get you. Don't do it.
Right.
Whereas today it's like, yeah, get it in. And that's not really their fault. It's the society. It's the powers that be who are placing money and power behind certain images. If you have people who are oppressed and people who may not know better or have the mental maturity and the historical maturity to know what's going on, these are young people, in their teens, early 20s. If they don't have that science, they're saying, look, we can change your life from what you've been dealing with all these years. And with this money, all you got to do is talk about this, that, and the next thing. And they're like,
Yeah.
okay, show me what I signed.
Well, and that's the reason why, because we have to be honest. Just like the entertainment business, just like the music business, people of color that are bringing in the dollars, we actually don't own the business.
Right.
All right. And I often thought, I said, if the music changed and we were able to change the narrative in the direction of our music, would the business shut down the hip hop business? If you know what I mean. All right. Because we know who writes the checks. I mean, I remember someone saying that how rich LeBron James was. And then the comment says, no, LeBron James is wealthy. The guy that writes LeBron James check is rich.
Okay.
All right. And that's the same way in the business. They give us just enough in order to keep us happy in the lane we're in, but we actually don't control the lane that we're in and the traffic and the way the music is played. So if we change the direction of the music and we were authentic and we actually took back the music, what would happen to the music? Would the system shut us down, or would the music continue to play?
I think honestly, at this point, I think it's like a runaway train. Hip hop is here to stay. When we were starting it, I remember the older people used to be like, turn off that boom boom noise. Saying like that guy who said, Run DMC ain't gonna be nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we had no support. And I was in a group breakdancing on the block, handing around a hat, talking about, yo, we trying to buy some linoleum because all we breakdancing on is this cardboard here that we found.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, I seen it from the ground up. So once this started making that momentum, people figured out that it was the streets that was supporting the music. It was the streets that was supporting the culture. We used to send tapes, to each other. Yo, I got this new mixtape. Yo, I went to New York and I got this off of BLS or whatever. And then we do mixtapes and you start doing your pause mixing, and this is how hip hop was started. So once it became this $1 trillion industry, multi-billion-dollar industry, certain things did change. And of course, like you said, there's the people writing the checks are not about the culture. The people writing the checks are about exploitation,
That's right.
Right.
making money. And that's what capitalism is. So I don't necessarily hold them as being wrong for that. I do feel like if you are making money at the expense of somebody else's culture and causing genocide through those images, and you know what you're doing, then there's a certain amount of evil there. So what we have to do is say, okay, look, this is our culture. We're the ones who built it. We're the ones who could keep it moving forward if we understood what was happening. But we're real quick to want to go and get a check. We're real quick to want to, you know, to take the fast route. And the fast route will blow you up. But you got to understand that what comes with that is control. You can't say what you want. If you do, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? This is a young guy named Lil Boozy out today. I usually don't bring up any hip hoppers when I'm talking because media is, you know how they twist your words and stuff. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you guys wouldn't do it. But somebody would say, yo, man, he was talking about Lil Boozy. No. I saw an interview with him and I haven't heard much of his music, but I like him already because he says, I make my own checks. I'm behind my success. I'm pushing this. I don't have a machine behind me. So I say what I want to say. I'm unleashed. And I love that about him. And that's what we have to learn to be more like, so then we can do the art we want to do and say the things we got to say. And it's important.
Yeah. It's usually those artists that when you hear them spitting that kind of truth, they're usually independent of some kind, right? Because they can have that creative freedom to do that, right? And for us, for RMK Productions and Network, it was important for us on this music series to highlight the music that makes a difference and to also have these conversations around the history, the context, the artist, because we want to educate people at the same time, because I believe that once you get all of that information, you can appreciate the music in a different kind of way. Yes. So we're really excited to have, you, chairman of the bars, your other groups, be a part of a live virtual concert that we're going to be doing in another month or so, highlighting, this kind of music, bringing it back, and just sharing it with the world. And I know that this is important to you too. You use music as well to help teach, and you're using it in schools. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Well, I learned a long time ago that music helps people learn. So, I learned that from watching Kung Fu movies because they would be teaching a lesson that say, Patience is a virtue. And then they would repeat it in a musical form. So I said, okay, well, I do hip hop and I'm working in the school system trying to educate our children. One of the things that I should be using is their culture, our culture, you know what I mean? And what we know is that the system itself is, I don't know, you could say purposefully broken, but it doesn't work for us necessarily. Once they get past the third grade, the style of teaching goes more from auditory and doing things to literary and, written stuff. And so even though we invented writing in this particular form here today with a couple of 100 years of illiteracy popping off, there's issues, you know what I mean? So I was just trying to be creative in how to educate our children. For instance, I have a nephew. He's in another room right now. He if you teach this dude something in a song, he got it. But sometimes concepts don't always, he doesn't see them right away. You know what I mean? So if you put it in a musical form, it's like he takes a hold of that rhythm and then his mind starts sinking and it starts dropping. So I say that I can do the same thing with kids. You know what I mean? V.X.Symitar is not, I ain't gonna front, but he's a different cat than the guy that teaches. The guy that teaches is very, disciplined or whatever. V.X.Symitar is he's a hip hop artist, real guy from around the way. So I ain't perfect.
That's beautiful. Love it. And we'll be looking forward to bringing you back for a second episode along with some of the guys so we could really dig in and talk about the process of making this music and, just really getting into all of that. So, Kevin, you have any final thoughts?
No, right now I'm excited about this opportunity. I constantly talk about, the 107 historically black colleges. If we took our talent back to our own home place, what would happen? The music would change. The movies would change. The whole spectrum of everything would change. NCAA would be the I don't know what the acronym would be, but I know the number twos are not going to go to number ones anymore because they're going to follow the number ones that are really the number ones. But I think we have an opportunity to send a message to the current artists right now to be responsible, to take their place, and also take their place and take the power away from the system, and have our investors invest in creating, our new black Hollywood, our new black entertainment. And it could all happen through you guys. It can happen through this message. It's just that we've got to wake up people that have been asleep and just passing time, and just, be responsible right now to make a difference. And we have the power. And the power is in the music, and the music has a message. And if the message happens to have a beat, that's what we do. And we do that well.
No, yes, RMK Productions, big up, because I've watched a lot of the things on the internet, you know what I mean? And you have some decent shows like Hip Hop Uncensored. That's an excellent show. There's some other shows, and I won't mention their name, where they've exploited us and then wanted to disrespect Farrakhan. I'm not going to keep going there. But the point is that to have shows like yourself, who recognizes the need for talking about responsible things. And, and not everything has to be, this and that, but to know that we're in a predicament, we're in a little bit of a pickle here. So our culture is important, and productions and production companies that we have to be conscious to an extent, or at least like they say today, woke, so that we're not just promoting the wrong things and continuing with our own destruction. So big up to y'all for being on a new positive path, and us together reimagining something different.
And that's the only way we're going to do it, if we do it together. I mean, Marjorie's heard me say this. Education is not designed to make you comfortable, like our music. It's designed to make you think.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's what we are all about, to educate, inform, empower. And in this episode today, we've covered a lot, just talking about hip hop music. And I can't wait for us to continue this conversation in another episode and really getting into Black consciousness music and the music that V.K. Symitar and his group, V.X.Symitar and his group creates. But we hope that you've learned something today, for those of you that listened in and joined us. And if you enjoyed this, we invite you to share this with your friends and with your followers. And if you don't want to miss another episode of One Queen, Two Kings, or any of our other shows like Talking with Kevin and Son, Storytime and Wine. And listen, we've got new podcasters on now, BFF, Black, Fabulous, and 40. They are hitting, and they're going to be dropping next week, Friday, Kaisha and Crystal. And so, listen, we're going to have a lot of people coming at you and just sharing some great information. So we want you to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll get a notification. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. And definitely visit our website at rmkproductions.net. Until next time, be the change you want to see in the world.
All right.